Awesome. So I'm Rachel Silverstein. I am the Executive Director and Waterkeeper of a local nonprofit, Miami Waterkeeper. We are a 501c3 that focuses entirely on ensuring swimmable, drinkable, and fishable water in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. And many people don't know this, but you actually have a right to water that is safe for swimming, drinking, and fishing. And if anybody is taking that away from you, you can actually bring them to court under the Clean Water Act. So the foundation of Miami Waterkeeper as an organization was in the 1960s on the Hudson River in New York with a group of commercial fishermen who had been supporting their families for generations, fishing on the Hudson, and factories were starting to go in and people were polluting directly into the Hudson River, and they were no longer able to sell their fish. And they banded together and formed the Hudson River Commercial Fishermen's Association. And in the early 1970s, after the Clean Water Act was passed, this was one of the first groups to use the power of the Clean Water Act to actually bring polluters to court. And that became the Hudson River Keeper Group. And then in the early 90s, the idea spread across the country and now across the world that citizens could be spokespeople for their body of water and advocate for keeping the water clean on behalf of the body of water and the public. So we're a membership-based organization. So if you become a member of Miami Waterkeeper, we can actually go to court on your behalf to make sure your water's clean. So that's where our mission comes from. Again, we're Miami-Dade and Broward based. And we focus primarily on clean water and water pollution issues, of course, everything from the Everglades out to the reef, and from the bay to the water that's in the water table underground that is particularly important in Florida as well. And then we also do habitat protection, which for us here locally is coral reefs, seagrasses, and mangroves, as well as wetlands. And then sea level rise is a big focus of our work. And of course, the issues related to sea level rise affect all the other issues that we're working on and our ability to live here. So that's an intersection with security and public health, as well as environment and transportation and education and so on and so forth. So always happy to talk about any of those issues as well. And then our team is a group of scientists like myself. I have my PhD in coral reef ecology from University of Miami, as well as attorneys on staff and outreach professionals on staff. So we have a very diverse group so that we can approach these focus areas from all different angles. So we have outreach and education programs. Our formalized programs include a junior ambassador program. So this is for high school students and it teaches environmental leadership and training. It's actually starting on Tuesday. Our newest cohort was just accepted and we have made that whole program virtual so that people can do it safely. But normally it would be meeting on Saturdays or Sundays to learn coursework, and then alternating with going out in the field and doing volunteer events, learning water sampling, doing pollution patrols, cleanups, and habitat restorations. And then as Maddie mentioned, we also have our 1,000 Eyes on the Water program that I encourage everyone to check out. That is a program that is for anyone of any age, and it trains you to look out for pollution as you're going about your daily life. So you may not know it, but you actually could be seeing pollution events happening that are harming Biscayne Bay, and it's teaching you what's okay and what's not okay, as you know, in the storm drain at the end of your street or while you're out on the bay, and how to document and report it to us so that we can get things taken care of, because people get very confused, like which agency handles which type of pollution, or marine mammal stranding, or an oil slick, or illegal dumping. And so we keep track of all of that, and we're very good at nagging people. So we can nag the agencies and make sure things get fixed. Since COVID, we have also put that program online, so you can actually, it takes about an hour, and you can find it under our programs on our website, miamiwaterkeeper.org. We have reached 1,000 eyes, which means we've trained 500 people. So we're very excited about that. So now we're going to go for like 10,000 eyes. So everybody, I encourage you to take that because it's a great way to get involved, and you never know when you might see something. In the last few weeks since this fish kill happened, where people are, which I'll get to in a second, where people are really paying attention to the bay, we are getting like 10 individual pollution reports a day, which just makes me realize how much is going on out there. And we're only a staff of 7 people. So we have a lot of coastline to cover, and we need everybody's eyes on the water, quite literally, to report to us what's happening. And today we got a video of someone out of their apartment. They saw somebody dumping a huge amount of like debris, sediment, something directly into a storm drain, and you could see it coming out the bay. And code compliance actually sent police out to go intercept the polluters. It was very exciting, but we are getting so many reports of pollution, which is good because people are aware and so we can get it stopped, but it's terrible to realize how much is going on all the time. So we also do, normally we have like volunteer events all the time, but now we've pivoted to more online education materials. Under Explore More, we have curricula for students while they're at home for parents and teachers, and quizzes you can take. There's lots of ways to get involved. You can join the rapid response team so that you can get action alerts, when to call your commissioners, things like that. And then everything we do in the second pillar of scientific research is totally founded in the science. So we both keep up to date on the latest scientific literature, but we also are producing peer-reviewed literature with our staff, working with local universities and agencies and other scientists. And we are out every week collecting water quality information at sites all around Biscayne Bay. We right now are sponsored by the City of Miami and the Village of Key Biscayne to do all of the sampling work. Every Monday we sample. It takes 24 hours to get the results, so we look for bacteria in the water. And on Tuesdays, we get those results and we post them on a free app called Swim Guide that I will show you in a second too. So you can download Swim Guide, and we put the Department of Health's water quality data, our water quality data, and another group called Swim Guide that also takes bacteria data on Fridays. Their data is posted. So we put all of that information into Swim Guide so you can see red or green if the water is safe for swimming or not. So the water quality monitoring program has been expanding really quickly too, and we're hoping to get funding to get more equipment to be able to monitor different parameters in addition to bacteria too. And then we do advocacy work. So we work with a lot of elected officials. We design policy, we advocate for policy, and we will bring polluters to court if they are breaking environmental laws. So one of our big cases was against the Army Corps of Engineers for illegally killing coral reefs under the Endangered Species Act. And we've had Clean Water Act suits over sewage spills and things like that too. So here is Elizabeth, our water quality specialist, out sampling and monitoring the water. She's taking environmental data in this picture. And then that is a screenshot of Swim Guide. So you can download Swim Guide for free. And you can see the status there is green, but it might be red if we recommend that you don't swim. And it might be because of bacteria levels or something like the fish kill is going on, and we could also put it into a special status for that reason too. So beautiful Biscayne Bay, our backyard here in Miami, brings billions of dollars to the economy every year, one of the best sailing bays in the world, the best bone fishing bay. It's a national park. Many people don't know that Miami-Dade County is the only county in the United States that has 2 national parks. Biscayne National Park and Everglades National Park. And the whole bay is covered as either the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserve by the state or the Biscayne National Park by the federal government. And it's a designated outstanding Florida water, which is the highest level of water quality protection that the state gives. And we have a critical wildlife area here from the state, which is so protected you're not even allowed to kayak through it without a permit, and that's directly next to the Marine Stadium. So there's a lot of really special places in Biscayne Bay. A lot of people live here because of their access to this wilderness in our backyard. But there's a lot of pressure that gets put on the bay because it is directly adjacent to one of the fastest growing metropolitan centers in the country. So as many of you are aware, we have had this unprecedented, as far as we can tell, fish kill, where on August 10th, our team was out sampling at Morningside Park, and instead of the beautiful fish looking like this is what they found. So we believe likely tens of thousands of fish and other marine life were killed, from lobsters to seahorses to lots and lots of pufferfish and toadfish you see in this picture, giant moray eels, shrimp, some creatures that I did not even know were in the bay, barracuda, octopus. It was bad news out there. It was pretty apocalyptic. Really quickly after our sampling teams saw this out there at Morningside Park, we started to realize this was a widespread event. And we started to ask the public to send us information, and we got reports from all over northern Biscayne Bay of where people were seeing the fish kill, and we are keeping an up-to-date map even today of the observations of the fish kill. And I spoke to the DEP secretary. They're using the map. The scientists are using the map from various universities, and the public's observations have been really key to the response to this event as well. And then unfortunately, a few days later, we had the secondary effect of the fish kill, which is these really severe algae blooms. I don't know if anybody saw this out there. This is forming at the edge of canals. We think this is likely as a result of the fish kill and the seagrass die-off decomposing, causing these algae blooms. And I'll explain a little bit more here about what happened. But first I want to point out that what we're hearing from a lot of people is like that this is a normal summertime fish kill in Florida. And I just want to point out that this is not normal. And even though they do have these fish kills in other places around Florida every summer when the water gets really hot, this should not happen anywhere. And it certainly does not happen and should not be happening in Biscayne Bay. This is a really big deal for us here in Miami. And ultimately, why did this happen? Well, it's because of pollution. But it's not because of the pollution you might think, where there was one pipe going into the water that you could shut off and that would have saved the fish. This is decades of pollution and neglect building up in the bay that scientists have been warning about for years. And it's coming from septic tanks, from sewer leaks, from stormwater runoff, and from fertilizer overuse. So of course, today I'm going to talk a lot about the fertilizer overuse, but first I'll explain a little bit of the other inputs here that we may be a little bit less familiar with. And how am I on time, Maddie? I can't hear you. We're good? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, just wave me off because I could talk about this stuff for a long time.
No, I think people are very interested in hearing, so feel free to.
Okay, fantastic. So this is my terrible diagram that I just made in PowerPoint that our digital marketing specialist was like, please don't show that. And I was like, well, the other one's not ready yet, so I have to show something. So I apologize for how this graphic looks. It will look better soon. So what I wanted to show here was that you ultimately get the nutrient pollution from these four sources getting into the bay, and that breeds the bacteria and the algae that are in the water. So algae is a plant, and as we put fertilizer on the land, it's rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. When that gets into the water, it breeds these microscopic plants, algae, that live in the water, and it causes a bloom or causes them to be over-fertilized. And just like on land as well, the wildlife and the plants in the water need air to breathe or need oxygen to breathe. When it's dissolved in the water, we call that the dissolved oxygen levels. And the dissolved oxygen levels are one of the key indicators of how healthy a body of water is. So essentially, during the day, when everything is photosynthesizing and producing oxygen like plants do, things are kind of okay. But then at night, when you have too much bacteria and algae, they use up all the oxygen that's available in the water and nothing is making more oxygen, you end up with these low dissolved oxygen conditions. And you hit a point where there's no more oxygen left in the environment, and you get these fish kills. Literally overnight, everything will just suffocate. And this is a really common and known pattern of decline in bodies of water. Then you have the fish dead in the water, and you have seagrass dead in the water, and they start to decompose, and then it results in increased nutrients and bacteria that creates the algae bloom that we saw. And then you get these really thick blooms, and then when that algae dies, because it will eventually smother itself, when that algae dies, you get the cycle repeating, and you get increased bacteria and algae, then you get low dissolved oxygen again. So we are bracing ourselves right now, hoping that we don't have another fish kill as a result of these algae blooms that we're seeing. So that's why we're so worried about the algae blooms. So I hope that makes sense. And it's slightly more complicated than that too, because other things are happening. This nutrient pollution is pushing the system to a point where it can't sustain any other stressors. And when the water gets hot, it holds less oxygen in it. So this is more often happening in the summer because the water is naturally holding less oxygen in the summer anyway. And so when things are pushed to the brink and stuffed full of algae and bacteria, that's when you see these things starting to happen. So a little schematic here, again, just to review where these pollutants are coming from: septic tanks, stormwater runoff, sewage leaks. Fertilizer overuse is causing algae blooms and fish kills, and the seagrass to die off, which I will also talk about in just a second. And this is actually the schematic that I normally use to talk about how sea level rise increases pollution from all of these factors, which I won't go into tonight, but just know that sea level rise is making all of this worse and is definitely playing a part both in the water being too hot and more stormwater, more sewage leaks, more septic tank runoff, and more runoff from the land generally. So this is 2011 in the Julia Tuttle Basin, just north of the Julia Tuttle Causeway. All that dark colored stuff in the middle of the basin is seagrass. And the seagrass is holding the soil in place, and that's making beautiful clear water, and it's providing a place for the fish to live. So it's creating really productive habitat, and it's producing lots of oxygen, keeping the environment healthy. However, starting in 2014 or so, we started to have a precipitous decline in our seagrass all over Biscayne Bay, and some basins have lost over 90% of their seagrass by 2016. So this was the first giant big red flashing arrow that we had a problem in Biscayne Bay from this nutrient pollution, because we're starting to lose the habitat. We're starting to lose the seagrass. And of course, now we've lost the wildlife. And we're hoping that we don't have like a dead zone forming in the area as a result of these no oxygen conditions release a whole bunch of chemistry that reinforces the cycle. So actually, when you get no oxygen conditions, it releases hydrogen sulfide gas that smells like sulfur. So a lot of people were reporting sulfur smells all over the bay too, and that's what was happening. So I'd like to show this too for how long this has been going on for. This is a crazy article that one of our master's students found from 1949 from Look magazine. There's crazy stuff in here, but the author was from Coconut Grove and wrote all about the pollution and the diseases happening in Florida because of our waste. Also, this was Jim Crow era Florida, and there's some pretty unsettling stuff in here. I'm happy to send it to anybody if you're interested in seeing it. But he wrote this article, but septic tanks were a problem in 1949. And when we had 100,000 people living here, and we still have over 100,000 septic tanks in Miami-Dade County that we have not gotten rid of. And the geology has not changed. It's still polluting the waters. 1970, we had this report from the federal government. This is pre-EPA. They came down, they did a 3-day meeting here, and they looked at everything, and they said the number one conclusion was septic tanks are public health hazards that contribute to over-fertilization and an algal nuisance. We still have over 100,000 septic tanks, and the county themselves put out a report over 18 months ago that half of those septic tanks don't work properly. So that's 50,000 properties that don't have a functioning sanitation system in 2020 in Miami. So this is 1970. Dade was given 3 years to end the pollution. Miami Herald headlines. That report did lead to change. It led to the construction of our 3 sewage treatment plants that we have today. And they said the federal government gave Miami-Dade County $500 million to build those sewage treatment plants and to get rid of all the septic tanks in the county. And they built the plants, but they didn't get rid of the septic tanks. So we had a grand jury report that I testified for that came out last August. This was a year ago, August of 19, saying the Bay is at a tipping point, warning. The Biscayne Bay Task Force was formed to look at this. Their report was just this week sent to the mayor's office. NOAA published a study. This is the federal government agency last August as well, 3 days after the grand jury report came out. That said, Biscayne Bay is going to have a regime shift, and they said specifically excessive nutrients in an aquatic environment from sources like fertilizer runoff and septic system discharge can lead to algae blooms and low oxygen levels that can kill fish. Whoops. And if current management practices continue, it could lead to a regime shift in Biscayne Bay. So that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So our policy objectives, which again, visit our website. We have all sorts of ways to get involved, but our goals right now are to stop sewage leaks, to eliminate septic tanks, to store and treat stormwater, and to enact a fertilizer ordinance, which I will explain in a little bit greater detail since we have a gardening community here. And we have been working on this fertilizer ordinance for the last 2 years, developing it specifically for South Florida. And right before the shutdown happened in March, the city of Miami unanimously passed what is now the strongest fertilizer ordinance in the state. The village of Key Biscayne passed the ordinance, and North Bay Village passed the ordinance. So we're now working really hard to try to get the county to make this county-wide. But the 4 basic tenets of the ordinance are, do not apply any fertilizer from May to September. There's an outright ban on application of fertilizer in the city of Miami from May to September already. So we're hoping this becomes countywide. Why is that? Well, in the summer, it is too rainy to apply fertilizer. As soon as you've applied it, it has rained before the plants can take it up, and it washes down the drain, and it almost immediately becomes pollution. So this is a real win-win-win policy item because people are wasting time and money applying fertilizer that isn't helping their plants and is turning into pollution right away. Never at any time of year should you, or in the city of Miami, are you allowed to now apply fertilizer within about 15 feet of waterways or storm drains, 20 feet even better, but you want to provide a buffer zone. Even better if there's a native plant buffer zone in between the waterway and where you're applying your fertilizer, and to use at least 50% slow release fertilizer in the mix so that it's less likely to all run out at once. And you essentially don't need to apply phosphorus in Miami soils because they're already very rich in phosphorus. So this is all, of course, assuming that people are going to use some fertilizer. If you can use organic fertilizer or not use fertilizer, all the better. And I think that this community can do even better than what is recommended in the proposed fertilizer ordinance. But as on a commercial level and a municipal level, this is what we were shooting for to really try to reduce the impact here. But of course, we can even do better than this. But this is the goal for enacting legislation on this. Here's more information. There's a lot more topics to cover. There's a lot more information to share. Really thrilled to be here. Thank you for including me. Happy to answer any questions. And our social media is really the best way to stay informed as the fish kill situation is unfolding. We try to post multiple times a day to let people know what's happening, and definitely send any reports you have to hello@miamiwaterkeeper.org. And we're tracking all of the algae bloom reports, fish kill reports, pollution reports, all that.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Rachel. That was perfect.
Okay, good. That was a lot.
That's all right. people want to know a lot about this right now. So let me check the chat real quick. And if anyone also wants to unmute to ask a question, feel free. Let's see. Alicia was wondering, she lives in North Bay Village area and was looking at the Resilience and Coastal Protection Agency. They have, or the RCP, Resilience Protection Agency. I'm not sure what that stands for. They have seagrass restoration efforts, and I see what you guys are working with Brent L. NBV Mayor. What if North Bay Village leases land like empty parking lots to grow seagrass and then have a team plant the seagrass?
So love the idea of seagrass restoration, but it doesn't make sense to put seagrass back in the water if we don't stop the pollution. So I think if we stop the pollution, the seagrass will recover, or we can restore it to help it along. But if the water is such that it doesn't support seagrass communities, we can't put more back out. And the same is true, we get that question a lot with coral restoration. So we have to figure out ways to make the coral more resilient, for example, which with seagrass, I think the answer is really you got to get rid of the septic tanks, stop leaking sewage, all that.
And then from Muriel, she was wondering if the ordinance applies to both chemical and organic fertilizer.
I just unmuted myself because you just asked my question, and I wanted to clarify that, like, I was actually asking not if the ordinance applies to both chemical and organic fertilizer, but if all those, if all those effects you were talking about fertilizer apply to both, like, which I know they're going to be yes. So I just wanted you to point that out, that it's not so much like a battle between organic or chemical fertilizer. It's more about educating people on the correct way to use fertilizer. Somebody here just asked Carl, he said, if organizations like Little River and Fairchild can grow out fertilizer, why can't there be an outright ban on fertilizer? And it is a lot about education, because we actually do use fertilizer. We use certified organic fertilizer, which is better than chemical fertilizer, but it's about using it responsibly. And that just takes a little bit of education so that you don't overuse it. Nobody's trying to harm the environment by using fertilizer on purpose. So there's a lot of just misunderstandings about it, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I have to go back and look at the exact language. It might just be like synthetic fertilizers, but I have to double check. But the synthetic fertilizers and herbicides, frankly, which we also worked with the city of Miami to have them stop using glyphosate, which is like the ingredient in Roundup, on commercial properties. They were like literally spraying it in the canals and around parks. And actually countywide, the counties also agreed to stop using it on municipal property, but the state has preemptions. So you're not allowed to like ban herbicides, and you're not allowed to ban the sale of fertilizers, but there's a loophole where you can still ban the application of fertilizers in certain seasons. So that's, we're always trying to like thread the needle with what the state blocks us from doing, like banning water bottles and plastic bags. The state has said we're not allowed to do that, which is ridiculous. We actually wrote briefs for the state Supreme Court about that issue, but that's another issue entirely. But I think that the point is that the commercial fertilizers and herbicides last a lot longer in the environment. So they're much more harmful, because when they run off into the water, they persist for a long period of time. And so the organic, and correct me if I'm wrong, Muriel, but I think that the organics, they still have nutrients in them, but they break down faster. So you apply them maybe more often, but they are less likely to all run out at once into a body of water. And it's not fertilizer use, it's fertilizer overuse that's the problem.
Right. Yeah, I would confirm that organic fertilizer is easily absorbed and breaks down into the soil really quickly. It can still be a problem during the rainy season when there is erosion, and it does run off. It does run off like chemical fertilizer too, but it is slightly less problematic.
And a lot of the regulations are specifically targeted around lawns and lawn fertilizer use. Because
of the volume, right? It's like the volume of fertilizers are used in, golf courses and large scale landscaping.
Exactly. And right next to the water, you've got all these like green lawns.
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated because those kinds of landscapes are really hard to manage organically.
Yeah.
So
native plants.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's why, I think why don't you have an outright ban? I think it's a matter of trying to find balance where, people are not going to go completely bananas that they can't have a green lawn anymore, because that's like, again, another conversation, but like a very ingrained part of culture for whatever reason. So it's a matter of like, what can we get done that's going to take away the worst of the impact, and that is this overuse of fertilizer during the summer months and right next to waterways, and trying to find a balance where people can still do their landscaping things that they need to do. So as Muriel said, they're hard to maintain in some respects without doing that, but we can do it in the least impact possible and use the least amount possible and do it in a way where it's not going to impact the water.
Yeah, that's kind of always the strategy when you're trying to solve a problem, finding the way where it has a decent enough of an impact, but doesn't make people angry and doesn't feel like it's infringing on what they want to do. It's like we'll push for like no auto straw. So it's not no straw, but at this restaurant, they won't automatically give you a straw. You have to ask for it.
Right. And on the fertilizer ordinance piece too, a lot of places have wanted to do an ordinance that doesn't have the summertime ban. And a lot of data has actually shown that in order for this to have an effect, you have to have a summertime ban. And it actually is like worse to have an ordinance that doesn't have that ban because people get very confused and it's unenforceable and the messaging is very difficult. So we actually looked at data from other places around the state where they had these ordinances enacted, and you could see measurable increases in water quality and reductions in the nutrient loading in the water. So we were like, okay, we know that this works. Even if it's not, the ideal situation, we think it'll improve water quality and it'll be a benefit.
Awesome. Let's see, we've got a question from Jackie. Curious to hear what the alternatives to a septic system are.
So this is a tough one for individuals because Miami basically developed so fast before they laid sewer pipe. So they put in a lot of septic tanks in places where the sewer main hadn't been put yet. And then they enacted an ordinance that said, when the sewer comes, you have to hook up. But then in actual fact, people are just like living their lives for decades in their homes. And one day they get a letter in the mail that they have to pay, $15,000 to hook up to a sewer main that's coming. And that's not okay. So what we've been trying to work on with the county is having funding mechanisms to hook up and revolving loan programs so that the burden is not on the homeowner to finally hook up when the sewer does come. But also I'm on septic because, I live in Coral Gables and there's no sewer around. And so you really have no option as a homeowner. So the thing to do about septic really is to contact your elected officials and let them know that you think that this is a big problem, particularly for septic tanks that are compromised and are flooded, that the county has like mapped out where those are, and yet done nothing about that. And that's a public health problem as well as an environmental problem because it can make people sick. And a lot of renters are in homes with septic tanks or complexes with septic tanks. There's no law on the books requiring inspection of septic tanks or maintenance. So people can't afford to move and they're stuck with the septic tank. There's no law requiring landlords to fix it. And it becomes, very much an environmental justice issue and public health hazards for folks. And this is also well documented. So one of the other things that you can do if you have a septic tank and you want to be a responsible septic tank owner is get your tank inspected. and maintained properly. The head of the water and sewer department for Miami-Dade County bought a home in Coral Gables and had the tank inspected, and there was no tank left anymore. So for decades, people were just like flushing their toilet into a hole in the ground. And I think that I hear that all the time. And people live in homes for decades and never have it inspected. So another policy action item for us that could happen tomorrow, you know, I understand it's expensive to do these infrastructure projects, but like, let's have a required inspection program and a maintenance program to make sure they're at least being maintained. I know more about septic tanks than I ever wanted to know at this point.
Yeah.
I wish I knew a little less about septic tanks.
Oh, that's such a scary story.
It's terrible. Yeah, I've got a lot of them.
We'll do one more question for you, and then I'm going to jump back because I think Jackie's on, and just do a quick question or two from her, and then the quiz. So I know it's getting late, but so real quick for Rachel, Alicia was wondering about what about storm drain filters. She's seen commercial grade ones for construction that will absorb even oil. Yes.
So we need to do something with the stormwater runoff, because right now we have such issues with flooding from sea level rise that the focus is almost entirely on how do we get the water off the street as fast as possible. And that has turned into like, let's pump it off. And that is pumping really dirty water with everything that's on the street, like oil and grease and herbicides and whatever other crap people are putting on the street is getting washed down the drain, basically going immediately to the bay. It's supposed to be filtered. Even at least the first inch gets like deep well injected or into a French drain or something. This largely isn't done or isn't working, and these new pump systems just don't do any filtration. So we're definitely pushing for the county or the cities to invest in methods that store the stormwater, slow it down, and put it into a safe place where it can move through a natural system, like move through the ground, move through plants that can suck up the extra nutrients before it gets into the water, like stormwater retention parks, ponds, using the bioswales to be stormwater collection areas, using the medians in the middle of the streets to treat stormwater. And then we have to start, another policy action item for us is, let's have RFPs and ask all of these companies that have these technologies to do pilot studies and start funding some innovation in this area, because we're only going to have more stormwater as streets flood more from sea level rise, and we need a better plan to deal with it instead of using Biscayne Bay as a toilet for it. So I'm not an engineer. We don't pick particular companies or support particular technological solutions, but we can say, let's get RFPs going and try some of these things that filter stormwater and things like that, and let's see what works, and then let's expand it.
Awesome. And all right, before the quiz, Jackie, if you are here, unmute yourself. I thought I saw you. Oh yeah, there she is. Sorry we lost you.
I totally like almost knew that was going to happen. When you have a big metal box, the Wi-Fi just doesn't penetrate very well, so that happens a lot. But on the flip side, if you're bummed that you couldn't see the inside of the farm, I really highly encourage you to come volunteer at Lotus House. Always need volunteers. I always need help with the garden, and you can see it in person. But yeah, if you haven't, and I lost the chat when my service timed out, so I couldn't see any questions. So if you had questions about hydroponics and Lotus House and our program and everything, Maddie can read them, or just let me know.
I pulled up, there are a couple, two quick ones, I think, and then one that might be a little bit longer. One was how many kids on site at your facilities on an average day?
Yeah, so I think I included it in one of the slides. The count from this morning is 233 children.
Wow.
Out of 472 people, I think. And most of those kids are like 5 and under. So we have a lot of really young children. We have a lot of single moms and young children.
Oh, and I wanted to brag, because you said you weren't an expert. You definitely are. And I know the kids at the shelter call her Farmer Jackie, and it's amazing. So anyways, and then Sophia was wondering like the best ways to support Lotus and all these amazing programs.
Volunteering or donating, I would say. So if you go to our website, lotushouse.org, you'll have access to both of those things as soon as you log on. And I really do encourage donating. We our entire shelter was built without any public funds. We're entirely privately funded. And I love to emphasize that like a third of our team, a third of our staff are actually people that we've hired from the shelter. So when you donate to us, you are literally like facilitating giving jobs to women in need. So I really encourage one-time or recurring, whatever. And yeah, reach out to me at my email. I think Maddie's probably going to include it, but it's Jackie1. And if you email me, we can get you set up with volunteering and getting involved. And then I just saw another question about where is Lotus House located. We're in Overtown. So we're pretty close to downtown. We are on 15th Street and Northwest 3rd Avenue.
Awesome. And then Andrew asked, how long is the ROI? I think that's return on investment. On a container-based hydroponic setup like that, seems like the initial investment might be pretty high.
Right. Yeah, we get that question a lot. So that is just kind of the model is there's this huge upfront cost of buying the farm itself. And then after you've purchased the farm, it's pretty, there are some costs for supplies and like nutrients and seeds and things like that. But really after that big initial costs stay pretty low and you can get a really huge profit margin if you're good at growing. But it is, we had 3 different grants that helped us buy the farm. And there's definitely a learning curve when you start growing. I would definitely say I wouldn't expect to harvest anything useful in the first like 3 months. It takes a little while to really get in the hang of it. But where we are at a year now, we're consistently harvesting like 50 or 60 pounds of leafy greens a week. And that weight does not include like our herbs and radishes and flowers and all that other stuff. So we have a very different model than most other hydroponic growers. Most other hydroponic growers have a commercial business where they're selling to caterers and restaurants and things like that. And we aren't selling to anyone. We aren't trying to make any profit. Everything we grow just goes straight to our kitchen. So like, unfortunately, I can't answer many profit and business related questions. Yeah, I can do my best.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Thanks, Jackie. If you guys have more questions, again, I'm going to follow up with everyone's contact information, but since it's getting late, I'm going to jump into the quiz. So it's through Kahoot, like I said. Let me pull it up real quick. And you will need, it'd be easiest to do using your cell phone so that you can keep the screen pulled up on the questions and you will answer the questions on your cell phone. So this will, let me share my screen. We'll give you a link to go to on your mobile phone. And once you put in this link, let's see, I'm the host. And we'll do classic. There we go. Yeah, we've got the loud music. One second, let me turn it down. So you visit www.kahoot.it and the game pin is 503176. And you'll put in a name when you sign on. Wanted to emphasize that this game, again, it gives you points for correct answers. It does value speed of answers. So you'll want to make sure you answer quickly once you know your guess. And so again, it's all based off of what we covered today. Hopefully we have had times, you know, when you're on the spot, the speaker doesn't talk about what the question was about. So in that case, use your best judgment, try to look it up fast. Again, speed is the thing. But yeah, just have fun, and the winner will get a little prize. So I'll just give us a couple minutes to sign on. It'll keep up real time and kind of give us the leaderboard after every question. '19 players. just gonna give it a little bit longer because it says we have 41 participants. Maybe they left the room, but yeah, and while we wait, I just want to again thank you guys all for participating, like Rachel said, and also speaking for Rachel. All of you all are such amazing organizations, and it was so great to be able to kind of unite everything that we're doing and share this information with everyone, and again showcase how everything's all connected, but how that connection can bring communities like this together. So that's my rant. It's been great having you guys, and again I'll follow up with all of the relevant information. Okay, I'm going to do a 10-second countdown. Or please put in the chat if you're having technical difficulties and need me to wait. Let me open up the chat. But 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we'll get started. Okay, so the first question, what is the name of the globally imperiled ecosystem that used to be where Miami now sits? Five seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Also, I'll read off the multiple choice answer. Great job. 100% of you guys got that correct. Okay, so with timing, how long it took people, that's why there's different scores. Congrats, Erica. Why should people plant native plants in their yards? Increase habitat for native wildlife, improve chances that seeds and pollen are transferred between habitat fragments, they require less irrigation and pesticides than non-native ornamentals, or D, all of the above. All of the above was the correct answer. So Andrew's taken the lead. Which season is the least suited for growing vegetables in South Florida? Spring, summer, fall, or winter? Correct answer is summer. 17 got it correct. Andrew is still in the lead, but it's a close quiz. Next question is, what beneficial insect helps to control aphids by eating them? Hint, there was a photo of them in one of the presentations. All right, Rachel says she has to jump off. Thank you so much, Rachel. Really appreciate you taking the time, especially during such a busy period, to relay this information to us. Correct answer is ladybugs. 19 of you guys got it correct. All right. So Jen stole the lead, but still a quick or close quiz. As a consumer, which is a more effective way to help reduce agricultural pollution, by buying local food or organic food? Going for one more. Correct answer is organic food, right, Muriel? That was your question. Okay, you have me scared that I put the wrong answer. After the quiz, we'll have you explain it, just in case there's a time limit. I'm always scared I select the wrong answer. It's gonna ruin the whole game. Okay, so Andrew's back in the lead. All right, what is the average daily water usage of the farm at Lotus House? 100 gallons, 25 gallons, 5 gallons, or 50 gallons? I think I forgot to read the multiple choice answers last time. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 gallons. All right, a lot of you guys remembered that. It's so impressive. All right, Andrew's still in the lead. Still could be anyone's game. We got 3 more questions. Which kind of crops are optimal for hydroponics? Flowers and fruiting plants, leafy greens and herbs, shrubs and trees, cruciferous vegetables. Five more seconds. Leafy greens and herbs is the correct answer. Oh, Andrew's getting in the lead again. Jennifer has to head out. Thank you, Jennifer, for shark casing. Connect to Protect. I'll send everyone contact information for you. All right, 3 more questions. Which month should you not fertilize in? January, March, August, or December? Correct answer was August. That's in the middle of the summer, peak rainy season, so the rain washes a lot of fertilizer into the water. Oh, Andrew's still got a solid lead. Oh, but Jackie Roth is making a comeback. I saw that at the bottom. What does Miami Waterkeeper test the water for every week? Bacteria, microplastics, copper, or oil? Bacteria was the correct answer. Microplastics, I wish maybe one day. It's hard to test for microplastics, but that'd be sweet. All right, Andrew's in the lead, but Muriel has a streak, so we'll see what happens. Final question. Which of these pollution inputs are leading to fish kills and algae blooms? Septic and sewer, stormwater, fertilizer, all of the above. Ending with a challenging one. 5 seconds. I think someone just left their phone and we have to wait for the countdown for them. Correct, all of the above. Let's see our winner. 3rd place was Rachel. 2nd place was Jen. 1st place, Andrew. Congratulations, Andrew. If you can put your contact information, your email address in the chat, I will follow up with an email to get your prize to you. Okay. Let me X out of that. The music. Awesome. Well, that is a wrap. Sorry, I ended up going a little long, but it kind of always does. And if we were in an in-person event, it probably would be 2 hours. So I really appreciate you guys sticking out and listening to all the speakers and participating in the quiz and asking questions and engaging about these really important topics. I will follow up with a whole lot of information, slides, recording, resources in the chat, contact information. I am scuba diving tomorrow, so it probably will come in the afternoon. But I will get the information to you so you can reach out to these people and keep learning and engage with their organizations and businesses. So thank you guys. Thank you, panelists. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I know it's really late, so it means a lot to us and to us at DFO, all the participants. So yeah.